Hello everyone and welcome along to your Sunday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening as we get set for the start of Rangers' new season. We always get excited heading into a new season, and none more so when we've got a new manager and the makings or the start of a new squad to get excited about as well. I'm joined tonight by JB and Craig Hughes. JB, first of all, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, it's been a bit of a quiet few days, hasn't it, in the world of Rangers? So I'm sure we'll still find plenty to talk about ahead of a big game on Tuesday.
Yeah, never short of anything to talk about. We're also joined by Craig Hughes. How are you doing, Craig?
Yeah, good mate. Just as you said, looking forward to getting back to Ibrox. I don't think there's a better feeling than the first couple of competitive games. Just getting back into going to games and all the kind of hopes and optimism is for the start of the season. So I'm just looking forward to it now.
Absolutely, and there's plenty to talk about. We had Russell Martin give a very timely interview to Rangers TV on Friday night, I think it was published. So we'll get stuck into some of the sort of key talking points around that, particularly as we head into towards the build up to the game. We'll talk about how we think we'll set up. We'll talk about confidence levels in terms of the team, given we've played one public friendly and 3 behind closed doors. So do we actually know what to expect? Are we all a bit excited but frightened at the same time? Are we where are we with all of that? We'll speak about the front line. Dessers and Igamane were both mentioned in a very positive way by Russell Martin in the video and the interview. So we'll chat a bit about that. We'll chat a bit about the latest news on Igamane and rumoured transfers. And then a little bit as well around the visit of Sir Alex Ferguson and John Greig to the training ground on Friday. First time Sir Alex Ferguson has ever been at the training ground, which I thought was interesting, as well as the fact that he was the one that reached out to Russell Martin, keen to chat to him, and it appears to have been a regular thing as well. So we'll get stuck into all of that. Plenty of people coming in the comments already, so please do keep giving your views on what we're talking about. Give your views on the game coming up on Tuesday. We'll bring as many as we can up on the screen as well. But JB, yourself, first of all, 48 hours away from Rangers season officially kicking off. How are you feeling?
Yeah, similar to what you just said there. A bit nervous, but excited as well. I think, as I said, on last week's pod, I'd love to push this back by another couple of weeks, just to give the players another bit of chance. Doesn't seem like too long ago that the international players were just coming back, so it feels as if everything feels very rushed. I think we're probably still 1 or 2 players away from what I'd want to be going into this game on Tuesday. I can't foresee anybody, if we do sign anyone ahead of Tuesday, I can't foresee them being thrown straight in. However, it definitely feels as if there's just a little bit of a spark missing, but that spark could come from Igamane and Dessers, as you touched on there in the manager's interview, referencing that they seem to be in quite a good place. Again, I think we've spoken to death around the lack of friendlies. It would have been good them two to get some minutes. I thought they might have been an off chance for 30 minutes today in the youth game, but obviously that's just been designed for very much just sending the kids out and obviously showing face. I'm not sure, was it a testimonial or something? So I think yeah, but no, I think on Tuesday it's going to have to be a classic from the fans. I think I remember the Malmo game, which I think was the first midweek game post COVID, and everyone was very flat. It almost felt a bit too soon. Didn't help the fact that we rocked out that purple kit, which was giving us Gothenburg vibes. And it was an earlier kickoff, if I remember right. It was at like 6 p.m, so it was still light, so it didn't have that European feel about it. So yeah, let's just hope once Tuesday comes, the team and the fans are both ready for what will be an interesting test.
Yeah, Craig, a few comments coming in already. Robert Binney saying if we can't go into this game with confidence, then we don't deserve to be there. Scott Kearney saying, have my fears, we are not ready, but hope I'm wrong. Paul saying we have to be ready, 0 excuses, that's what pre-season is for. Luke Gibson 97 saying I'm 50-50 in the game because it's so early on. If this was deep into a Europa campaign, we'd be heavy favourites at home. How are you feeling at this stage?
As I said, excited about it. You're always going to be a bit nervous. It's totally the unknown. I never thought this. I mean, nobody could go into this game with total confidence. There was just no scenario where we could have been going into this game overnight. We're in a great place. We've had loads of game time and we're ready to go. So it always was going to be this way. I think we'll have enough to get through it. I'm excited to see us. I think it'll be far from perfect. I think we'll get some sort of win at Ibrox on Tuesday that we can take into the second leg. And I think by the second leg, is it a week away? The second leg? Yeah.
8 days, I'm sure it is, yeah.
I think even then you'll see a little bit of progress, guys more, match fit and stuff in there. So I think over the two ties, I'm quite confident we'll have enough to get through. But you're obviously going to be nervous with really not a lot to go on, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And Russell Martin spoke in his interview around some players that might not quite be ready to play a huge amount of the game on Tuesday night, but he's hoping they will be much more prepared and up to speed by the time it gets to the second leg. JB, you mentioned about the friendlies there. We've kind of spoken to death about our worries about the fact it's been one public friendly and 3 behind closed doors. What does that mean? Where does that leave us, etc.? I think a couple of the points that have been put forward when discussing that is that, one, we obviously played Club Brugge, Barnsley, Dunfermline and Hamilton. There's not been a natural build in terms of the quality of teams that we've played. We're kind of used to seeing, you almost start off with the for so many years it was the local amateur team in Germany, wasn't it? And then they gradually built their way up throughout pre-season to some of the bigger English teams at Ibrox towards the end of the pre-season. The other part I've seen put forward is that, well, we've not, as fans, we've not seen us, but that means Panathinaikos haven't seen us anyway, and then therefore they don't know what to expect. What do you make of that and the sort of preparation for the game?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. You can see both sides of it, can't you? You can see almost the case of what are Panathinaikos working against. I know their manager has done a presser over there and said very much they're as prepared as they can be. They've watched a lot of Russell Martin's teams. They've watched Rangers teams. They've studied the pitch and the climate of the ground and stuff, which sounds a bit over the top. But one of my concerns is how a player looks in training could be very much different to how they look in front of 50,000 fans with the pressure that comes with. One of the good questions I think they asked on our TV was will the experience of the players who've done this before be handy? And I think that will be massive on Tuesday. So I'm looking at the likes of your Butlands, your Tavs, your Souters, your Diamandis, your Raskins, Danilo to a lesser extent. These guys are going to be so important for us in terms of being able to handle that. Because even if you think of like the likes of Max Aarons, for example, played in the Premier League and has obviously been thrown into, he's played against Real Madrid and stuff like that. So he's played in some big games. And Jigger as well. If he's the one that gets thrown in, he would be used to a toxic environment, having played obviously where he's played previously. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. The one that does fear me, and I know we'll get into team selection shortly, is Kieran Dahl is probably a fantastic trainer, and he's probably fantastic in B games. But he's kind of the prime example of probably saying to me at the moment that's giving me the fear, because I thought he looked petrified against Bruges. And lo and behold, that's because there was a fan base there with a high level of expectation. So yeah, there's a couple of little bits there niggling me. I agree with a few of the comments. If we don't beat Panathinaikos over 2 legs, you don't deserve to be anywhere near the Champions League anyway. We probably know as fans that they were quite realistic that the Europa League is probably realistically our level in terms of being able to compete. But that said, if we can get through this one and go positive, I think it'll set us up for the season. But flip side, it could go the other way. My big concern is that fact that we've seen a lot of low pressure games. I'm not saying pre-season games should be high pressured, but there's almost a case of you want that intensity. You want to see how players react under adrenaline. And we've definitely got a squad of players, and you could argue it goes all the way back to the 55 season in terms of players being able to handle the expectation of a crowd. We did see a few differences and a few players kind of go into shells when the pressures come. No more than Kieran Dahl coming on in a League Cup final and refusing to take a penalty alongside Dessers. That's pressure. Do you know what I mean? It's not a case of what you can do in a training ground. So yeah, wait and see. As I say, I'm looking forward to it. Might sound it, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the whistle on Tuesday. I'm interested to see what the starting lineup's going to be as well.
100%. Craig, JB's kind of mentioned there around you can see both sides of it in terms of comments on the preparation. What's your view of the build up towards this? What is a really big game? Because if we get through this tie, then we're guaranteed European group stage football, which is always the aim.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. That this game's we're starting off with the most important game of our season all the time. There's so much pressure on us to hit the ground running. I think pre-season's not been ideal as much as you can say it's been a great training camp, which I'm sure it was. I'm sure Russell Martin's putting his ideas across very, very well, but it was never going to be a straightforward pre-season, given when Russell Martin got appointed, how much work we required on the transfer side, and how little friendlies we got. I always seem to like if we play in the kind of little tournaments, like when we were 155, we played Leon. I can't remember who else we played that.
It was Nice, wasn't it? It was Nice.
So I know it wasn't competitive, I know it wasn't pressure, but at least felt like a little tournament, kind of, something to hold on to if you've got a lead or something in one of those games. So it did feel like a kind of real friendly, if you know what I mean. So I always feel like those games can kind of help prepare you, and I don't think we've really had that. As JB touched on, and you guys are saying, we've not really had the natural kind of lead up as this is the first game, now it's tougher, now we're ready. It's just been kind of like Club Bruges, let's see where we are, let's then play a couple of behind closed doors. So it's been a bit all over the place from that side. Again, not being critical of the coaching team anywhere about that. So it was never going to be ideal, but I think it's all about, it's not going to be great in the game. I can't see it being, all flowing nicely. It will be, typical. The one I think about is under Gerrard, the Scoopy game, where, we weren't really flowing, but we managed to get the job done. It's a lot higher opposition, but I expect not perfect, kind of rusty in front of goal, but hopefully we've got enough about us to get through it.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Russell Martin said exactly that in his interview. That it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be a lot of learning taking place as we go through the game. So, but let's touch a bit more on what he said in his interview. So he spoke about the focus has gone from being on conditioning to performance and being ready for the game. The squad have worked hard all the way through, but you can really feel with a change of mentality that it's getting closer. He was asked, JB, are they where you hoped they'd be at this stage? And he gave, I guess, a politician's answer was what I thought he kind of gave to it. But he said, in so many ways, we didn't know what to expect. They've been brilliant to work with. They're in a good place physically, a much better place than we were 3 or 4 weeks ago, and tactically in a much better place. We need to be ready for what the game throws at us. I feel like we've got a good enough base to build off to win the game of football, and we'll learn a lot about each other during the game. What did you make of that kind of answer? It didn't fill me with the level of confidence I wanted to be filled with, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of sound bites in there, wasn't it, in terms of when he spoke around how the team's going to play in terms of style. We're going to be aggressive, we're going to run, we're going to fight. That's kind of the stuff that you kind of want a bit of a standard. I think he's in a little bit of a kind of a no-win situation because I can't foresee him coming on Rangers TV and saying we are not ready for this on Tuesday. And on the flip side, he's not going to come on and go, we're going to scoosh these on Tuesday. So I think it's almost a case of just trying to, as you say, give that politician's answer, sit on the fence, kind of just make sure that we emphasise the fact that the players have been working hard in pre-season. We can see that with the snippets that we have coming through Rangers TV. I know we all turn into football coaches and managers and analysts over a 7-minute training video where people are putting cones out and stuff, but it's almost the case of you can see that the effort's in there. The players coming off the training ground to look as if they're about to collapse, which is always refreshing for us to see as fans. So yeah, I think he's saying the right things at the right space without trying to get us kind of too G'd up, so to speak. But I think, as I touched on earlier, I think it's going to be a case of Tuesday and the following Wednesday. I think the adrenaline and the passion, and we're going to need a little bit of luck, I think, over the 2 legs as well. I think there's no doubt about that. We did, unfortunately, when we drew this team, it was almost the case it was probably the best of the 3 teams, not just for the playing squad ability. I mean, I was on Transfer Market before. I think their squad's valued at just shy of 100 million. If you compare that to like your likes of Bran and Servette, you're probably looking around 40 to 50 million in terms of squad. So there's definitely it's definitely going to be a good test for us. But that said, if we look at the positive side of things, if we can come through this with a good performance, it really does set us up going into the first few weeks of the domestic season as well, because it will be a step up.
Yeah, Craig, there's a lot of comments coming in around people not being scared about the new signings, but more being scared about the more experienced players that they've seen and they know what they can do. But people talking about the likes of Jack Butland, Thomas Cardigan there, saying Butland better not chuck one in or he's done. I mean, we're not even started playing competitive football yet, and there's already that level of expectation and I guess dread in some ways as well. Is there anyone that you think, and we'll come on to talk about the start lineup in general, but in terms of the experienced players, are the right ones still there that are going to be starting, or is there ones that I guess that you feel are there? Kieran Dowell is one that JB's mentioned, obviously, but are there others there that you feel you're less confident in?
There's, as you said, Kieran Dowell's probably the obvious one that stands out. All of us thought he was on his way out. As you said, probably a good trainer, probably a great attitude. He's probably came off Birmingham where he's done well. But he's one certainly you don't expect to see, in a Rangers jersey for too long. You don't expect him to be a mainstay, even if Russell Martin likes him. He's a squad player. He's not going to take us forward. I think Butland is the one I'm quite worried about, because he's a very good goalie on his day, but I just don't think we know what Butland's going to turn up. That Butland never really recovered from the Scottish Cup final error just over a season ago. And I've got real worries that his confidence is in the right place there. I think Taverner will do fine. I think he's probably looked sharp in pre-season. I know he had injuries here, but he should be all right, on that side. So, and the experienced ones, I think Raskin, Diomande, I feel comfortable with that midfield. I think that midfield's got enough to be a key point in winning as a tie. I think, in the forward line, probably where and the keepers, probably where I'm most nervous.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. One player who did come in during the week after I felt like it was being dragged out. He was training with us for 2 or 3 days before it was even announced. But JD Gazama signed on the dotted line during the week. JB and Russell Martin said about him, he's a little bit behind the group in terms of readiness. He's not ready to start the game on Tuesday. He's totally different to anything we've got. He's unpredictable, fantastic 1-versus-1 specialist, which is that in itself is exciting. It's not something we've really had for quite a while. He says he's a real individual talent, convinced he can create moments for us within our structure, which I thought was interesting about mentioning the structure. He has a lot of work to do physically, but he'll definitely be ready to go in the second game. So sounds like he's not ruled him out fully of coming off the bench and playing a part if he can or if they feel he's needed. But what do you make of I guess that's the first kind of comments we've heard properly from Russell Martin on Gassama and how he sees him. What do you make of that kind of assessment, and does it excite you?
Yeah, most definitely. I think he's one that we've kind of kept an eye on for a wee while now. I think Poku was no doubt he was the first choice. I think that got that far down the path that we thought that was going to be the one. But you can see with the profile and the type of player that he's been looking for, Gassman definitely ticks them boxes. Whether he's going to be ready to start on Tuesday, conditioned to saying Thursday, whether he's going to start on Tuesday is up for debate. I think it would be a big ask to throw him into, one, the environment, and two, the importance of the game. It'd be quite. I remember when we threw Ryan Kent in on his return, because everyone was dead excited to get him thrown back in. I think he came off after about 25 minutes with a hamstring or a calf injury. Again, probably just didn't have that. Hadn't adapted to kind of the surroundings. So I think in terms of him, got to be careful. I think we've got the Middlesbrough game on Saturday, and then obviously the away game, where I think he'll actually probably be more important in the away game, because with his he's got the kid's got electrifying pace. I've spoken to a couple of Sheffield Wednesday fans, and they are heartbroken that he's gone. So he's just one of these players that every time he gets the ball, you just get off your seat, because again, as Russell Martin's touched on there, he is so unpredictable. I think he'll be frustrating at times because that's what you get from wingers. How many times did we sigh when Ryan Kent cut inside and give an easy ball when he was 1-on-1 with the fullback? But I can see this kid coming in and giving us something different. A lot of the goals that we've seen, well, what we have seen in pre-season, and some of the training ground drills, it looks like we're going to hit the byline a lot more. If you think about Danilo's goal, I think I touched on the pod last week. We don't score goals like that, where we hit the byline and then cut it back for your centre forward. So I think that's what this kid's been brought in to do, and brought in to do a pace. Would love, again, probably falls under the category of if we were 2 weeks later down the line, I'd have been expecting him to start and have a real impact. But it could be a case of we have a good impact off the bench from him, and then we see the true performance next Wednesday. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him though.
Yeah, I think so. That's what he's one I'm really excited. Him and Asgard, I think, are the two that have really excited me so far in terms of signings. Craig, in terms of the game on Tuesday, when we look at this we've kind of spoken about a couple of players that could play out wide. Kieran Dow, I think, is giving us all the fear, right? Might be fair to say. And then Gassama, just Russell Martin said he won't be ready to start, but he'll potentially play a part in the game. Luke Gibson 97 has said, do you think Finlay Curtis will get a surprise start or at least an impact appearance? What do you make of our wide options for Tuesday? Because actually they seem to be really important for the way Russell Martin wants to play.
Yeah, it's obviously it's going to be vital that he gets the right wingers in, and we knew at the start of the season, of pre-season, we needed to bring in a good few wingers to get them out there. So we are, threadbare in that sense. It's probably going to be who's made the biggest impact in these closed door games and who's picked up the way that Russell Martin wants to play and who's got the athleticism and the fitness levels as well. Looks by all accounts that Finlay Curtis is kind of done really well in pre-season and he really likes him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he starts. Particularly, I think that the kind of rumours where he started the behind closed doors game at the weekend. So I wouldn't be shocked if he starts, which I'm quite excited about as well. We talk about how the academy doesn't produce enough players, and then we get really nervous when somebody goes to start. I would love to see him get the chance and hopefully he takes it and hopefully he does well in there. He'll know himself. He'll never get a better opportunity to get in this team. We will sign a few wingers, so this is his chance to break through it if he does get. I think he'll play some part over the next few weeks. I think he could start, but if not, I think he'll be one of those guys that will contribute, particularly when we're getting in terms of recruitment in that area.
Yeah, I think that's fair. JB, just on Finlay Curtis, we've also seen bits and pieces of him over pre-season. He played an important part in the Club Brugge game. I see there's people arguing over how you actually say it in the comments. I think that would be one of those forever argument things. We saw bits and pieces of him throughout pre-season. Is he one that you feel maybe isn't quite at the level yet, but has that real potential to get there?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing you're going to get from the kid, he's going to give it his all, which is a great starting position. For those that had the displeasure of travelling down to Birmingham for the pre-season friendly at the start of last season, it was absolutely horrific. The one bright spark that we did have walking back to the car was Finlay Curtis, and I did think we'd probably see a wee bit more of him than what we did last year. I think it was just a prime example of how much pressure the manager was under, and then obviously with Ferguson coming in towards the tail end, for these kids to come in and trust them, and again give them that burden as well of, right, you're going to be a starting player for Rangers Football Club in what was some of the massive games. But he hasn't disgraced himself on any of the appearances that we've seen him. Took his goal really well against Club Brugge, and then also it sounds like he's done okay in the bounce games as well. So I think, I'm looking forward to seeing him. I agree with Craig in terms of having that fresh spark. I think we all hoped and thought McCausland could have given us that from a kind of domestic youth player coming through the ranks and knows what it's all about. But this kid seems to have something about him. I know people who watch the youth games tell us he's a fantastic finisher. And he's probably more of a goal scorer than a winger. So I think, again, having players that can put the ball in the back of the net when we need to. The only thing I think will be quite frustrating down that left hand side if he does start is you're probably going to lose. You're going to have Aarons, who's probably more likely going to want to come inside. So whoever does start on that left-hand side is going to really need to hug the touchline. So it'll be interesting to see what he goes with. But I think he started the last 2 or 3 friendlies / bounce games. So I think it'll be, I think it's his shirt as it stands. We've got options there. Obviously, Gassama can play out down the left, and Cortez, who it's madness the fact that we're not even mentioning him in terms of a start and stuff. Or I think it would have been Asgard shirt, if I'm being perfectly honest, if he was fit. But it sounds if he's going to be touch and go, so I'd be surprised if he makes the start. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing Curtis a lot more this season.
Yeah, Robert Fisher here saying Curtis is way better than McCausland. I'm going to be harsh and maybe not harsh and say I don't think that would be hard. But I'm just not a Ross McCausland fan. I don't think I've been he just felt like he started his Rangers career and you're like, he looks like he could have something, and then he just went the same way that a lot of youth players go when they get into the first team and started playing safe, might have lost confidence in his own ability. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but it just felt like he didn't progress the way that we all expected him to, and he just stopped running towards the byline, which is what we all wanted him to do in the first place. So yes, maybe harsh on Ross McCausland, but I'm not his biggest fan. We'll come on to the main striker position in a little bit, Craig, but I'm keen to just go back to that Russell Martin interview. He spoke about the new signings. He said they've been great. They've all added something to the squad, a really good group to come into. He said Tello Asgard has been everything we thought we were getting and more. His understanding, his athleticism, his technical ability. He's going to be touch and go for Tuesday. JB just mentioned that, but he'll hopefully be ready to go for the second leg. In terms of Asgard, do you see him as part of that front three rather than kind of in that, I want to say number 10 role, but maybe a number 8 in terms of Russell Martin's system?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've not seen anything to really know exactly. I think it depends who we recruit in the wide areas. You could find games where he goes in that kind of number 10 or number 8, if you want to call it. He drops a lot deeper in there. So I think he'll first of all be used as a winger. But I think as we recruit players, he could end up moving a little bit back, particularly in games where you find like European games. We probably need Rothwell, Mandy, and Raskin. We probably don't need that in a lot of domestic home games. You like to come to Dundee at home. You probably don't need those 3 in there. You probably can spell one of them out. Put a more forward-thinking sort of midfield attacking kind of player in there. So I'm not really sure, to be honest. He might mix between the 2. I think initially it'll be a while until we've got other options that are up to speed.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. We've kind of spoken about the excitement around some of those new players. JB, we all spoke about earlier about the fact that Russell Martin's answer to are the squad where you hoped he'd be at this stage didn't really give us with confidence. He was then asked a bit later on in the interview, what gives you confidence they're ready? He said how hard they've worked since they've been here, how willing they are to try the things that we are asking them to do, how willing they are to learn, how much they want to compete and fight is the biggest thing. I'm excited about Tuesday and what we'll see in the pitch. It will by no means be complete. We need to put in a performance that looks like us and creates a platform to build off. He's spoken a lot about competing and fighting and running, and that those are all things that we've all accused this Rangers team of lacking in the last few seasons, if not more than that. Is that something that you like that he's really focusing on, and that you're really expecting to see a huge difference when the whistle goes on Tuesday?
Yeah, most definitely. In terms of, I've got kind of less concerns about Tuesday in terms of all of them things that you've just touched on them, because this group of players have kind of shown over the last few years, European wise, they turn up. Do you know what I mean? They do run. They do look very dogged. Players that don't normally make a lot of tackles domestically make tackles. Players that don't normally chase lost causes. When the European nights. Now that could be a couple of things. It could be the shackles are off a little bit in terms of the pressure. in terms of playing in the European football and almost being the chaser, if you will, because a lot of the teams that we played against, certainly last season, if you look at squad value alone, were much better than us, even if you take into account the likes of Manchester United and Tottenham, or obviously all went through their difficulties throughout the season, but they're the two teams that made the final, and at no point did we look out of our depth there, certainly from a work rate perspective. If you think about Man United away, and we had to bring Curtis and Bailey Rice on at half-time, do you know what I mean? These guys kind of showed that environment, and that if you do put the effort in, then you'll get your rewards. I think the biggest criticism of this squad and previous squads is that same effort is not getting put in domestically. You can see it. You can just see in terms of the tackles that the players are firing into. The pressing has been horrendous domestically, and it's something that I hope the managers identified as a big win. A lot of people have said it does feel as if the squad he's building is built for domestic football as opposed to more the European. It feels as if we're moving away from more. If you even got to look at someone like Robin Proper in Europe has been fantastic, and you can see even when he's on the ball, he's very composed, very organised, but he's getting chased because I think it's been identified that he's not built domestically. You could argue NCR is probably in a similar ilk as well. So there's a handful of that squad that I think will be that are still to leave. In terms of ones that have proved that they can't handle it domestically. Yilmaz, another good example of somebody who's performed really well on the European stage, but again, when it comes to domestic games, just really looks really weak, looks really slow, and other than having a left foot, doesn't really offer as much at all. So, yeah, as I say, I think we'll hopefully see the best of us on Tuesday in terms of where the fitness levels are. One thing I've been thinking about as well, I know there will be a few changes in terms of the squad coming in, but other than Czerny, he's the only one that's missing from a really good European run last season. You could argue there's the likes of, I'll probably say the only other caveat to that would probably be Leon Balogun. I mean, Leon Balogun on a 6-month contract would have been absolute no-brainer whatsoever. I think we'd all be feeling a wee bit more confident even if we were going into Tuesday with Tavernier, Suter, Balogun and Aarons. Just that said, I think everyone's a little bit nervy that we've got people potentially making their Ibrox debut at centre half on Tuesday, whether it be Fernandez or whether it be Injiga.
Yeah, I think it'll be Gia. I can't see a situation where Manny Fernandez is thrown in, having seen just the highlights of games that he's played in. A big guy, and I have no doubt that he's a threat at set pieces, but he does seem a bit nervy when he's playing the ball, and seemingly consistently plays square balls along the back line, which isn't good when you're the last man standing on the halfway line. So the quicker that he stops doing that, the better, in my eyes. Craig, Dessers and Igamane were a topic that Russell Martin discussed as well. He said they're both a little behind on fitness, but working incredibly hard to get there. Dessers because of injury, Igamane because of visa problems, which again is just quite a random one and seems like something the club should have been all over. But going by that, I expect Danilo, who's played all the preseason games, who's I think scored 4 or 5 goals in total now, with a few assists in there as well across the games. I do expect him to be leading the line on Tuesday. I saw some comments earlier on around the fact that actually Danilo plays best in that sort of number 10 role when he's got Igamane ahead of him, for example, and those two link up particularly well. The front line is my concern for Tuesday, if I'm honest. I know a lot of people are concerned about the back line, but the front line is where, and actually just getting the goals that we need to get through this tie. That's the huge concern for me. I think Danilo is good when he's on his game, but he's still not as clinical as we need a striker to be in those situations. How do you feel about him looking pretty nailed on to be that number 9 or the number 99 for Tuesday? Sorry.
Yeah, I think pre-season he's obviously done all right. He's banged in a few goals and he's looking quite sharp on that side. He's a player that we all have seen glimpses of and thought there is a player in there, but he's just not the durability to really get a good run at it since he came to Rangers. So I'm the same as you. I'm quite nervous about the front line. I think Russell Martin's probably played it quite well to keep Igamane involved, to keep Dessers involved, and he's made it clear that with options on Tuesday, which is good. I think the club's handled that pretty well. The deals aren't done yet, so got to keep them involved for now, depending on what happens. So I think I'm kind of reassured that we've got them as options to bring off the bench. I think it'd be different if we were saying, they've still got their injuries or still got the visa problems. We can't put them in the squad and are playing the game in that sense. I think I'd be really panicking if Danilo was our only fit striker. But the fact you've got them on the bench, that's guys that can come on and get you a goal late on, that can possibly play a big role in the tie. Which I think would be quite strange. You come up with a Dessers goal or an Igamane goal, and we'd all pretty much assumed they were leaving a few weeks ago. But on Danilo, no, I think he'll do all right. I think he started pre-season well. I do have my concerns about the front three, but I still think he's got the ability to get us a goal.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, and I think he's shown over the course of this pre-season that he does have the ability to find the back of the net, even if he has missed a few sitters. But maybe that's me being harsh. JB, Bluebells are Blue, says it pains me the grief Danilo gets. The boy's been injured 3 massive impact injuries: a fractured cheek, a dislocated shoulder, and a compound ankle fracture. He's never had a chance to get going. I think that's a very fair assessment on that. And then Sobo says Danilo is a good player. He should have been getting games last season when the league was done. Are you more confident than I am, I guess, with Danilo leading the forward line on Tuesday?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just a quick one for Bluebells are Blue. If anyone is over in Lanzarote, make sure that you go and give Kenny and the guys a visit. I was over there a few weeks ago and well looked after as always. So I'm looking forward to seeing catching up with Kenny hopefully shortly. But in terms of Danilo, I'm a massive fan of him. I think I've said this a few times. It's just been so frustrating for him in terms of every time we kind of see a little bit of progress, it was kind of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. With him, because what I really like about him when he plays in the 9 is he plays in between the goal. Do you know what I mean? And how many times last season when we did have pace, or if we did get in behind and there was nobody in the middle, I really like that. That's the type of number 9 he is. I agree. I think in terms of the best performances that we've seen from him so far is when he's been that second man, and when we've seen that good little run, was it October, November going into December, was it? And it was Igamane and Danilo, and you thought, right, we've stumbled across something here, and these two can really complement each other and do really well. And I don't think we ever seen them again. Pretty much a full come-on classic. If we find something that works, we'll change it as quickly as possible. But I think in terms of him, I think he's had a cracking pre-season. There's no doubt he deserves the start. I'm also mindful that the game hasn't got to be won on Tuesday. As in, there's another big 90 minutes, and one thing we could probably say about this squad is they do save their better performances from being away from home in Europe. So again, I think we've just got to go into it. Obviously, a win is ideal, but I think what we need to do is probably come through and learn a lot without any damage. So I think if we can go there sit with a narrow win, obviously we want to be going over there with a nice comfortable win, and then you put a slightly different lens on it. But in terms of that, but I think Danilo will be super important for us over the next few weeks, because he's definitely the one that the manager's looking to point at, and maybe wasn't what he was expecting. I don't think if you'd rewound 6 weeks ago, we were talking about Friggin, the lad from Belgium, and we were talking about Terjeman coming in and all these different number 9s, Luke de Jongs, Jamie Vardy's. If somebody had said to us that 6-7 weeks ago it's going to be Danilo that's going to be leading the line, I think we'd all probably raised a few eyebrows. But in terms of the numbers he's delivered over pre-season, yeah, I'm really pleased. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how he does on Tuesday.
JB, you mentioned that the game doesn't have to be won on whatever night it is. I keep going different days of the week. I say it Tuesday. It doesn't have to be won on Tuesday night. Does the fact that the home leg is first, we've spoken before about the fact that it doesn't feel like the seeding is giving us any sort of advantage there, but does the fact that the home leg is first put more emphasis on the fact we do need to go over there with a lead rather than maybe a draw and seeing how we got on in the away leg? I take on board your point about the fact we've actually played better in away games in a lot of cases in recent years.
Yeah, I would say so. Naturally, you're going to want to go to any second leg with a lead. It doesn't matter whether you're playing Real Madrid or whether you're playing Panathinaikos. You want to win your home games because the law of averages say that the teams that play at home tend to win most, and the atmosphere that Ibrox can create. I think Tuesday will be very nervy. I still think you've got a large proportion of the fan base that probably still aren't behind the manager. There's a large proportion of our fan base waiting for this not to work, and kind of a massive told you so. We haven't had that for a wee while. I don't think we really had it with Van Bronk. We never had it with Beale. Never had it with Gerrard. I do feel as if Russell Martin is coming under. It will be under more scrutiny than most. And I do think the board have moved quite quick to try and get reinforcements in. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 players come in. Do you know what I mean? Into the squad. So there's definitely been support there. We're probably just one, as I touched on a couple of times, we're probably just 1 or 2 away. I think another winger and another centre half for the squad look. I mean, there's arguments whether we need another left back as well. Again, for start 11, but to get us through the next few weeks, I think we're probably only a couple of players away. So again, it'll give us another week. So if we can come through Tuesday night with, I'd like to see a good performance. I do, as I say, I do foresee it being nervy. I can't see it being an Ibrox classic where everybody's in there 15 minutes before kickoff. We should be. Do you know what I mean? Because this is as big as this is. If you think about the atmosphere when the whistle blew against Braga, Leipzig, who was the other one in between, Dortmund, kind of going into Ibrox before all of these games, there was that electricity. I think Tuesday will be quite flat. I'm foreseeing more of a Malmo, as I touched on earlier. I think the players are going to have to earn quite a bit of trust from us quite early on, and I think that they can do that though by showing us that they're up for it, that they're working hard, and we're seeing a new style. Things are a lot more positive. We're on the front foot. We're aggressive. So again, I think the pressure is definitely going to be on the players and the management team.
Yeah, Craig, that's an interesting point from JB. I hadn't really considered too much what the atmosphere would be like or will be like on Tuesday. You do naturally think a full house European game. It'll still be warm. I imagine weird weather today in terms of like it's really muggy, but it's raining, chucking it down with rain at the same time. So we imagine it's going to be warm as well. Does that naturally just lead to it being flat, I guess, or where does the flatness come from, do you think, in these early games? Is it just a bit of nervousness, a bit of being unsure about what to expect from the team and just saying, right, go out and show us what you've got?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of nervousness, I would say, and against, or Russell Martin certainly wasn't their first choice. So you just hope that I think the majority of fans have now went, right, he's the manager, let's get behind him and see how he does. I don't know. I think it's all about how we start. If we start pretty well, that place is rocking. I think before the game, I think there'll be excitement. I think I touched on it at the start how exciting it is going back to Ibrox after, even after a summer away from it. But if you think about last season, this kind of feeling was taken away from us. We had Camden with so many negative vibes about the club. Now it's a new era. We know that even if things aren't perfect right away, the club is going in the right direction. Now, I'm not saying Rangers fans are going to be patient, but I think everybody's got a much better feeling about themselves than they are this time last year. So I think when the whistle goes, I think the atmosphere will be loud. If we can start on the front foot, I think that'll go up and hopefully get an early goal, and that'll really kick us on. I think the longer it goes on 0-0, or even if it doesn't start too well, it might just be the players that have to pull themselves, out that hole. But hopefully it's a start with a lot of energy. I think Russell Martin will know that. He's familiar with Ibrox. He'll know that it is important how we start. It is important getting the fans on side. So hopefully it's a high tempo start and just get everybody going from the start.
Yeah, fingers crossed that's the case. Just while we're talking about strikers, just keen to talk about Igamane, Craig, and the latest kind of rumours around him. So obviously Lille in France were heavily rumoured to be, it almost felt like he was just going to sign in the coming days, to be honest, when that rumour was flying around. But apparently, according to Sacha Tolovieri, if I've said that correctly, the Belgian journalist, they said Lille are now struggling in negotiations, and Feyenoord, Everton and Udinese have all registered their interest in Igamane. It does seem like it's a matter of time before he's going to go, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it will end up going this summer, I think. But I like how we're just standing firm on the offers, and I like how we're in no rush. And I think fair play to the player as well. I think from his camp, there's not really been, taking a big huff or trying to force a move through or anything like that. If there is any of those discussions, it's kept very private, and it seems on the face of it he's training hard and his attitude's been good, and everybody's handled the situation well, because I think he knows he could end up staying here this season, and that's not a bad thing for anybody. He kicks on, he develops a player, and we sell him. We sell him next summer. So I think the club's acted the right way. I think there'll be a resolution. I think somebody will come in with the bids. If there are those kind of clubs circling, I think there will be somebody comes in and we do a deal before the end of the window. But as I said, for now, I'm quite happy with the way we're treating it compared to last season, where it seemed as if anybody, even thought about, making an offer for one of our players. They were getting punted there. So it's good that we're standing firm, especially on a player with that kind of ability, potential, and the length of time on his contract. No rush from their side.
JB, Craig said it's only a matter of time until Igamane goes this summer, he thinks. Do you, does it matter when in the window he goes? That's often quite a big thing, especially if we're getting a sizable fee that can be added to the transfer kitty as such. Does it matter, for example, if he was to go in the final few days of the transfer window, that doesn't give us much time to go and find a replacement or to spend the money on the replacement that we have lined up for him? Is the timing of that as important as anything?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, naturally, these things you want done as soon as possible because of the unrest and everything that kind of brings in and around. Is a player giving you 100% if they know that there could potentially be? I mean, I'm not sure what Igamane's on in terms of wages. I wouldn't imagine it would be massive, given where he's come from. So let's say he's on 15 grand a week and he's been offered 50 grand a week. Do you know what I mean? Would we all within our job roles be rocking in on Monday morning, giving it 100% if we felt as if there was that potential revenue income potentially there for you? I know footballers live completely different lives to us, but at the end of the day, there's money sitting there, isn't there, potentially for them? So, yeah, I think in terms of giving us time to be able to reinvest it, I think would be really important. I think there is almost a bit of a lens as well as to which competition are we going to be in. Will potentially determine how much and where we spend. We have been guilty of that, I think, over the last couple of years. However, we're not being ran like we were being ran a couple of years ago. I mean, if somebody had said to us at the start of the window or start of the season, you're going to be going into your first set of fixtures with Igamane and Raskin in the team, I think we'd have all been very, very surprised. So I'm just hoping that Russell Martin is a blast from the past, the 90s classic. Russell Martin kind of comes in and enjoys working with him, which it sounds like he is. There's no doubt the kid's got all the ability in the world. I was actually at loose end this afternoon. I was watching the Nice highlights back again, and the lad on the night was unplayable. Do you know what I mean? He's just got that ability for us in terms of being able to lead a line. And also, I ended up watching most of the European games from last season in terms of highlights. And it was almost a case of you could just see like the European nights is where we shone. And Igamane had a 2 or 3 really good nights for us. So yeah, I'll be. He's one that I'm telling all the Everton fans that he's crap. When he was linked with Everton today, so a few people have reached out to say what's he all about. I'm saying he's rubbish. Wouldn't bother. But he's definitely another one similar to Gassama that gets people off the seat.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Craig, Russell Martin still going on this interview. It was only 9 minutes long, but he managed to fit a lot into it. He spoke about the importance of progressing. He said we need to get in the habit of winning and playing in the way we want to play, regardless of who it is against. That really stuck out to me, and probably gave me a bit of fear. I've used that word fear quite a lot in this podcast. It gave me a bit of fear around how that has worked in previous iterations and previous coaches. How do you feel about that as a prospect? And no matter who we're going to play against, it appears or it sounds like we're going to play with the same approach and principles.
Yeah, I think it will alter slightly for different challenges. I think at this stage of the year though it is important. You're drilling in these principles every day to players. and then you go, you know what, everyone I've taught you over the last few weeks, just abandon that because they're playing against a good team. So just totally change. So I can see where he's coming from in that sense, that we need to prepare properly no matter who we're up against, and play the way we want to play. But I would certainly hope that he has got a different approach for, say, for example, going to Parkhead or going to a very tough European game compared to at home to Falkirk, for example. He's an intelligent guy. He'll know the different challenges it comes with. So I don't really take that. I kind of take that comment with a pinch of salt. I think he's just more making the point and that we're going to play our way and that we have to get that right. Rather than I'm going to play exactly the same way against every team. But it certainly would give me the fear if we did do that.
Yeah, I think so. JB, what Gibson 97 says, we used to play counter-attacking in Europe and it worked. Playing high line and more open might see us not as successful. While I am not as sold on Europe, that's the wrong way to put it, while I care more about domestic football and domestic success this season, it does appear that to me, and my first reaction is that's quite risky. How did you take that comment? And you kind of in agreement with Craig, whereas he's just trying to get that way of playing, that philosophy drilled in, and actually when we get more familiar with that, when the players are more familiar with that, we'll maybe adjust and tweak as we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got there's a reason why a club of our size, but a playing squad with our ability to perform so well in Europe over the last few years. I think it'd be very naive to kind of move too much away from that. I know some of the things that he's been criticised before is the lack of willingness to change. I think he has addressed that in a number of interviews where he's kind of said, well, that stick's kind of thrown at me, but the players that he had at Southampton, that was the only way that he kind of could play. So with the playing squad that's there, and as we touched on earlier, so many of these players haven't been successful in Europe previously. I'd like to see him kind of go with a very similar style to what we've been playing in European football because it's worked. Let's have it right. We come up against a really good Athletic Bilbao side to knock us out. If the draw had been a little bit kinder, and we were on the other side of the draw, we could have been facing like a Bodo Glimt, and then all of a sudden, then you're then starting to rock into quarterfinals, semi-finals, stumbling into finals. Do you know what I mean? So I think it'd be very naive if we started to defend on the halfway line, because one thing you will come up against in Europe, and maybe not domestically, you'll come up against pace and power. And we've been able to absorb that because of the style of play that we've been playing quite deep. There's never been games where we've kind of looked overrun. And when we've had the ball, we've been really effective. But that has come from a deep line. I can't think of too many times where Tav, John Suter, Robin Proper, Leon Balogun, Jeffy, for all his faults, Ridvan. I can't picture many times where you see teams getting in behind them. A lot of the goals that we conceded in Europe were either really good technical goals, really good strikes from distance, edge of the box stuff, or players just switching off. If you think about Tav against Nico Williams against Bilbao. So I think that the success of that is because of how drilled we've been, how the players have all really worked for each other. And again, I'd be disappointed if we move too far away from that, because Europe can be unforgiving. However, Russell Martin's seen that the Premier League can be unforgiving if you let it. They were on the end of some absolute hidings. They were unlucky on a handful of games, but hopefully he's taken that learning and he's utilising the current squad. But again, you'd like to think he has spoke around the squad being really open in terms of having conversations, and if the players feel as if something isn't going to work, then they're all in it together. He said that 2 or 3 times in his interviews. So hopefully, I'm not going to say the leadership group because it does consist of Kieran Dow, but the experienced players you'd like to think are going to be having a little word in the ear and saying, well, this is what's worked for us and this is why it's worked.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Craig, one thing we saw towards the end of the week there was a visit to the training centre from John Gregg and Sir Alex Ferguson. It was really interesting hearing Russell Martin speak about that actually, and said that he'd previously played for Peterborough under Darren Ferguson, and when he got the Rangers job, Darren Ferguson got in touch with him to say that Sir Alex wanted to speak to him. Apparently they've been speaking fairly regularly ever since. That's a really interesting one to me, and it wasn't one. I found it interesting, first of all, that Sir Alex Ferguson was taking such an interest in coming to visit the Rangers training ground, and he apparently spoke to the squad as well. What did you make of all that and that sort of insight from Russell Martin?
No, I think having a guy like Alex Ferguson coming in the club is brilliant. I think it would just give everybody a lift as well. Seeing a guy of that stature coming in and giving a little bit of advice, and you'd hang on every word that a guy like that said. I think it's also good that Russell Martin. I mean, we talk about being set in your ways and everything. I think that shows that he's still a coach that's learning. He still wants to lean on experience of guys and talk to guys in the game that he respects or that everybody respects and that he can learn from. So I think it's great, and guys like John Gregg as well. Nobody knows the club better than a guy like John Gregg. Just speaking to the right people. I've seen him. He was with Richard Gough as well the other day. So I think it's good. I think it shows a bit of respect that he has for these people. It also shows a bit of humility and a bit of willingness to learn. He could easily say, I spent 6 months at the club. I know exactly what happens here. He doesn't. He's speaking to legends and figures in world football and trying to learn if they can. Because ultimately, as I said, Russell Martin, the coach right now, is probably admitting that he's not the absolute finished product. He's still got to keep learning and developing, like us as a club.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. JB, how, I guess on Russell Martin, there's been split views amongst Rangers fans ever since he was sort of rumoured. There was quite a bit of backlash, outrage, whatever word you want to describe on social media when his appointment was confirmed, or pretty much on the road to being confirmed. How much confidence does it give you in Russell Martin as a manager and his ability that people like Sir Alex Ferguson and that have that track record in the game and are giving him that backing and are willing to support him and reach out in the way that they have?
Yeah, most definitely. Kind of, it gave me memories of Steven Gerrard with Walter in terms of Gerrard. Another thing that popped on YouTube today was actually when Walter passed, Steven Gerrard done an RTV interview, and he spoke really well in terms of the support that he gave him, both from a football perspective and just being and living in Scotland in terms of some of the advice and stuff. And I think if you've got somebody that you can soundboard against of that ability and that experience, it's invaluable. I think in terms of Sir Alex, in terms of what he's done in the game and the different type of tests and the different type of environments that he's been in, I agree with Craig in terms of having somebody even like that rocking around the training ground and speaking to the players. For some of the players who've maybe come in who are a bit unsure about the club, and a lot of people say you don't realise how big the club is until you're kind of in there. A few of these guys will now know. If you think of the likes of Max Aarons and Jigger, Fernandez, Rothwell. Well, Rothwell probably slight exception. He's probably past Fergie and in terms of the Man United youth stuff. Asgard, Cameron, Gassama, these guys will be, I imagine these guys would have been massively in awe of Sir Alex, you know what I mean, as well as the players that were already there. So I think it will, I think things like that and having soundboards from somebody like that, I think is an absolute no-brainer. As we touched on there as well, Richard Gough spent some time with Russell Martin. So again, I think that'll be fantastic. I was lucky enough to see Richard Gough last year at the Blackpool supporters do. I'm not just here to plug other supporters clubs, by the way, but fantastic club, the Gallant Pioneer, if you're ever down there. But they had Richard Gough as one of their guest speakers, and one of the questions that was asked from the crowd is, Richard, what do you think's missing from this current team? And it was fight, it was heart, it was all of these type of things that the manager's kind of looking to try and reinvest again in terms of being physical and being strong and being quick. And definitely looks like that's the type of squad that he's looking to build.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. We're fast approaching the hour mark, so let's get on to predicted team lineups. Normally, I would go slopey-shouldered and ask you guys for your lineups first, but I'm going to say what I think mine will be, and then you guys can let me know if it matches what you think. So for me, I think it'll be Butland in goals. I was kind of 50-50 on Butland or Kelly, if I'm honest, but I think it will be Butland that he goes with. Tab at right back, centre back partnership of Suter and Gia, Max Aarons at left back, although I'm not a fan of that at this moment in time, to be honest. Midfield 3, I reckon it'll be Joe Rothwell in that number 6 position, and then Raskin and Diomande as the 2 number 8s. Cortez, I'm going to go for wide left. Cortez, I've got wide right, actually, with Finlay Curtis wide left and Danilo up front. Where, JB, I'll come to you first of all. Where do you think on that?
Yeah, what I think and what I want is probably 2 different things. But in terms of, I don't like the fact that the whole team is right-footed. I think that's just something that we kind of can't get away with. It feels as if we're going to really struggle with that kind of balance. I know a lot of players prefer playing on the outside and cutting in. But yeah, as you touched on, same back line, including the goalkeeper. I did have a feeling, but we haven't seen it in pre-season, whether we'd have seen Tavernier coming in as your centre-half next to John Souttar. Takes away a lot of the communication challenges, takes away a lot of the nerves that would come in terms of giving you that little bit of stability if you went with Tavernier and Souttar. But again, I can see the concerns with that as well. Aaron's left back, as you've touched on, midfield 3, I think probably picks itself. That seems quite consistent over the last few weeks. Again, wouldn't want to see that as a midfield 3 domestically every week. But certainly in terms of this game, that kind of feels as if that would work. I don't think it's going to be Dal, Danilo, and I'm going to go Curtis just to mix it up. Yeah.
So Craig, I think the only difference there was I had Cortez out wide right and JB's gone for Kieran Dowell wide right. Where in terms of the lineup, are there any differences that you can see?
I was going to just throw another name in just to keep the conversation going, but I agree with JB's one. I think that's what he's going to do. The same team as the start to ham on. Bezrame was one I was thinking for a couple of weeks he might throw in, but I think he'll stick with what JB says. We've got good options on the bench, as we touched on, strikers. As I said, the likes of Bezrame, who looked quite sharp in the friendlies. So we have got options off the bench. Kasama as well can come on and make an impact later on, but I think that's the probably lineup, which, Dowell's the one that gives you the fear a bit out of that lineup, but that's what I think he's going to go with.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Everyone in the comments, if you've got a different view or if you agree with us, please do leave comments. Let us know what team you think will be starting on Tuesday night, and I guess we'll see approximately 6:30, 6:45 on Tuesday night as to what that starting lineup is. We're past the hour mark now, so we'll round off the podcast there. My thanks to JB and to Craig for joining me for this one, building up to Rangers' first game of the new season. My thanks to everyone in the comments as well. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel. It helps us massively. It means you don't miss out on any content coming up. If you listen to us on audio platforms, please do subscribe on the usual places, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. We'll be back on Tuesday night. It will be JB and myself live from Ibrox following the post-match press conference with Russell Martin. So we'll be live reacting to the events that have just taken place on the pitch and hopefully a winning start for Russell Martin. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.